Hello there. Welcome to our season finale of Forever and Ever Show with me, Jumoke Adewumi. Today I have with me the General Overseer of the New Covenant Church, Reverend Paul Jinadu, aka Beloved Brother Paul, and Reverend Catherine Jinadu, aka Mommy Kate. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you.
Today we're going to be focusing on your book, and we're still talking about choosing a life partner. Who should I marry? So we're focusing on Brother Paul's book, Choosing a Marriage Partner today. This book, I read it almost 40 years ago, and it was a foundation for me in relationship. It focuses on my mind on what to look for, the do's and don'ts. So I thought it is very good for us to have a conversation with him, especially since the book is going to be republished. Thank you again, Brother Paul. So, Journey,
Yes.
about 1980, you published the book. So
Yes.
First, yeah.
Yes.
What led you to writing the book, sir?
I observed two things as I was growing up in ministry, that the majority of those who came to same Bible college that we went to came there for the purpose of becoming missionaries overseas or ministers in the UK. In other words, they felt called. That's why they came to study and prepare. But you find that over the years, some of them either drop out of ministry or don't even enter ministry at all, primarily because their marriage had problems. And also of the missionaries who left their homeland to go abroad to minister the gospel. Maybe 1/3, when they came home after 4 or 5 years, came home for their holiday, they call it furlough, 1/3 didn't return because of marriage problems. So that led me to begin to find out what is it that makes people who are really, really committed to the Lord end up not doing what God called them to do because of marriage problems. So that's when I wanted to find out what went wrong. And I discovered it's in the choice. If you make the wrong choice, it's difficult to patch it up later on.
Wow. So it's very, so that focuses the mind on the importance of choosing the right person.
Yes.
A lot of people, I've been asking, how can we know who to marry?
Yes. Once you realize that marriage is not just because you love somebody or you like them and you want them to be your life partner, God also has a say. It's, after all, marriage is God's idea. So, to me, you start with God when you're doing marriage proposal. Who does God want me to marry? Because he has a purpose why he allowed man and woman to marry. So if his purpose is the paramount motivation, then we will expect him to guide us to the right person.
Guidance. I read the book again, sir, and yes. I thought there are some questions that were on my mind and which I wrote down. And I note in particular, you said, when God initiated the institution of marriage, he did it for his own purpose, just like you said. Marriage goes wrong when we try to fulfill our own purpose through it and not God's. So now the question is, in a world where marriage is so commercial, sir,
yes,
how do we know we are in his will and seeking his purpose first and not our own carnal desires?
Well, you remember God he created Adam. And then he observed that for Adam to fulfill his role and his purpose in life, he needed a companion. It was not good for man to be alone. I will find him a helper. You don't find a helper if you're not doing anything that requires you to help them. So you don't marry somebody and says, what is the purpose of this marriage? What does God have in mind? If you are not going anywhere, there's no way God can lead you. So it's for a person who has a purpose. Excuse me. They already know where they're going. And marriage is to find a partner to go along with them on that journey. So it's not, here is the marriage, what purpose does God have for it? No. Here I am, this is the purpose God has for my life. Who's going to fit in to help me fulfill that purpose? So if we don't have any purpose, in other words, it's easier to be happily married if you're a purposeful Christian.
It's very spiritual, sir. But in most cases, these days, but I would say that when I got married or was courting, so almost 30 years ago, about 30 years ago, I don't think it was the uppermost thing on our mind that purpose, we were not that purpose driven, sir. Mm-hmm. So in this case, because a lot of people probably do not even know where they're headed. Mm-hmm. And it's now a journey that we're now going to discover God's purpose for our lives.
Yes.
So what would you say to such a person, sir?
Well, like you said, you got married and you didn't have any particular purpose in mind. Mm. That hasn't stopped you being happily married. But it does not mean you have fulfilled anything that God has for your marriage, only for what God has for your individual, you as an individual. So fulfilling a purpose is different to being married, say, to the right person. So you can be married to the right person and still not discover why you married them, even though you're happy. So happiness is not necessarily the only end result of marriage.
We're going to break this down, sir, because I'm just trying to think about the simplicity of a boy loves girl, girl meets boy, and they see qualities that they admire in the person, and they think that yes, we can do life together. And this is my companion. We have things that we can discover ourselves along, and the things that we see here is good enough for us. Yes, we love God. We are serving God, and we are hoping that yes, at one point or the other, whatever assignment God has for us, we will do it together. So when you're talking, because I did say I noticed that you mentioned the compatibility in this book. So where does that come into all this, sir?
Many questions in that one. When something is working, you may not know how it works. Definitely, majority of us don't know how our car works. But when it goes wrong, and you're in the middle of nowhere, and there's no mechanic, no garage, you begin to find out, I need to know something. Is it the air? Is it the engine at fault? Is it the plug at fault? Is it the battery? Have I run out of petrol? So when things go wrong, that's when you need to know how it works so you can fix it. And in marriage, if God is not in it from the start, as I said before, being happy is the main motivation for it. If it happens that people are not happy about certain things, that's when it can break down, because the the foundation for the marriage is happiness, not purpose. That's when there is no motivation to say, I will make it work. Because the reason I married is only for my personal happiness. So that's why that is important. Number two, you mentioned compatible, to be compatible.
Yeah.
Right. So let me ask you a question. What would you define as being compatible? What is the idea in your mind when you ask that question?
That we have things in common.
Yes.
This person makes me come alive,
Yeah.
makes me happy. I'm happy in his presence. We have the qualities that I see in him matches mine. Where I'm strong is probably weak, and where I'm weak is strong.
Yes.
Yes.
Because you've answered my question in two ways there.
Mm-hmm.
We have things in common.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there are things we have that are not in common.
Yes.
That's why we're compatible.
Mm.
Not that we're the same.
Mm.
Same in certain areas, maybe in taste, in values, or whatever. But real compatibility is that we are opposite and yet we fit. So that's where we need God to help us. That I may be strong in one area, my wife may be weak in the same area, but do we dovetail our weakness and our strength, or do we dominate? Many people are happily married because they don't want problems. So they've learned to adjust, because one person will overpower the other, and for peace sake, you become less of yourself just so you can have peace. Now, where God comes in and where it is very, very important that you're facing the same direction in terms of purpose is that when you want to marry somebody, and this is my observation, when you want to marry somebody, on average, you don't really know them. You know about them. It's when you marry them that you get to know them. You know why?
Yeah.
Not because you didn't know who they were before, but marriage changes people. You become a different person when you have found the person who completes you. Now, if that person that you now marry has changed beyond recognition, what you used to like about them. I'll give you an example. One lady married a man. These are both Christians. And the reason she married him, or the thing she admired most about him, was that he was very, very quiet, a man of few words. So she admired him for that. He didn't just blabber his mouth all the time. But what she did not realize, and she discovered only after they'd been married for a few years, was that the reason the man didn't speak was because he had nothing to say. So if he says, what shall we do? Whatever you say. What do we do about the children's education? I leave it to you. Don't you have any opinion? Whatever you say, I'm happy with it. That became frustration. And I had to be involved in bringing the man out, but you could not bring out what was not there. However, where God comes in is that when you discover something that will normally break up a marriage without God in it, God can transform the person, change them, perhaps readjust them so they're better than nature dealt hands that nature dealt them.
All sounds very good, sir, and admirable. because that's the end picture.
Yes.
To know that God is always in it at the present. A lot of people here now, especially Christians, like we did then, when I met my husband,
Yes.
prayed about it, and we always talk about peace. I had peace. That was always a guiding factor with a lot of people.
Yes, yes.
A lot of people was not purpose driven. A lot of people was more, we pray and we believe that, yeah, we have peace, that this is the person for me. So bearing that in mind, we've talked about compatibility now, sir. So what should we be looking for? What should the man be looking for, and what should be the woman be looking for when they meet each other? What should they be looking for?
Yes. Spirituality can play a lot of role in choosing a partner here. What I mean by spirituality is that there's a scenario where you find, let's say, on campus, Christian fellowship. You have a brother, this is a common one. You have a brother who is the prayer secretary or Bible study secretary for the group, and is always in front. He's always leading Bible studies and so on and so forth. And usually when he says, God says, he gets things right. So you trust him as a believer on campus. Then the brother comes to you and says, the person that you trust as a good Bible scholar or teacher says, God told me you are to be my wife. And many who used to come to us for counseling, many girls sometimes are thrilled. This man of God has asked me to marry him. Others are confused. This man of God said God told him I'm to be his wife. But I don't like him. Number one. Number two, God hasn't spoken to me. How can I dare say I know more than he does? So they ask that question. And often we used to say to them, well, if God told him, then reply him and said, God has spoken to you. Let me go and pray and see if God will now speak to me. I can't take your guidance as mine. I need mine as well. That's number one. Number two, you said God told you I'm to be your wife. But do I have to marry somebody I don't like? Only because God says I should marry them. And that's where the problem lies. I say God will God will not tell you to marry somebody you don't like. That's why the title of the book is Choosing. He that finds a wife finds a good thing. God help you in the looking. He doesn't plunk somebody in front of you and says, this is my commandment, that you love one another. So you cannot spiritualize marriage to a level where it is thus says the Lord, but I do not have any feeling towards this person. It's the combination. How can God help me to see a person who's heard from God and I have no desire to ever marry them? How can I come to a place where if I believe they're right, to go and seek the Lord to find out if he will speak to me, and then go and help if the Lord says he's to be your husband, then God help me to now develop a liking for him. I can't just go into a marriage purely on a spiritual plane alone. So the two go together. Now, where it helps, because if you don't like somebody, no matter if they're Moses or Elijah, you can't enjoy living with them. Because you can't be doing Bible study every day. You'll have to have things that you enjoy together. Yes. So that's why we need to find out what to look for, both in the heart and visually. Do I feel comfortable? Am I happy to walk the streets with this man and be proud of somebody that I admire? You know, the husband should admire the wife, and the wife should respect the man. So if the man doesn't admire, he's only obeying orders. He feels God told me to marry her. I don't really need to know much about her in order to make her feel loved. Or she's responding, but doesn't really respect him. It will show up later on in their marriage. You have many who are living under the same roof, but they're miles apart inside. But the pressure of our Christian community doesn't allow them to separate, so they just manage themselves. There was one man, give you an illustration, who came to me and said he's just going off to Spain or somewhere on holiday. He's going there for like a week or 10 days. I thought you were broke. How can you afford for you and your family to go with you? Oh, he said, I'm going alone. So how can you go to Spain on your own for a holiday? He says, I'm going away on holiday from the family. I need a break from them. So that one, he let it slip. The thing has not been going well, and yet outwardly, if it's not for me, you wouldn't know that they were not miserable, but they certainly were not happy. They managed to adapt. So you can't take instances where people are happy compared to quite a lot who are not happy, but they're not sad because they have just accepted their Lord. That's what we're trying to prevent. Love, like the person you love, and love the person God told you to marry.
On the aspect of God told you to.
Yes.
How do one hear from God? I'm speaking for the people out there who are still looking and believing for a spouse. So, how do we hear from God?
Well, the first thing that Adam did when he saw Eve was to say, wow, wow, man. He admired her. He said, what? Wow, not what? Right? So, there would be some kind of physical attraction. I think the way to go about it before you become too spiritual, or even before you fall in love, is I like you, I love you, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. But you cannot say you like somebody if you know little about them. That's why marriage by correspondence or WhatsApp marriages tend not to work. Some people say, oh, I don't want to marry anybody from Europe or from America. I want to marry somebody from my hometown. So they bring somebody from their hometown. because they think they can manage them. But they don't know them. They don't realize that skin to skin they may be same. But somebody has been in Europe maybe for 10 years. They've adapted to a new way of life, a new way of thinking. And the person who's coming, especially if it's a boy who's coming from their homeland, and the girl who is here, and they introduce them. The boy is black, same nationality, same tribe, and he comes here. Well, her idea is that when I go to work and I come back, he goes to work and he comes back, and we're both tired. We share the domestic chores. That is her idea, because she's also got children to look after, a career, and home to keep. His idea is he's come home from work. Now he wants food. That is even okay. The wife can help him. But he hasn't gone to work all day. He's unemployed. But he won't cook. So the wife comes home and then begins to cook. And then after eating, he won't wash up. So they never knew that before. They just knew that they loved the picture, they loved the words, but they have not had time to see the person in real life to find out. So going back home for 2 or 3 times before getting married is a recipe for disaster. Like I'll give you another illustration. One man married a woman based on her cooking. He loved her cooking. Whenever he made sure that he got to know her by visiting her regularly. Then they got married. Discovered she couldn't cook. Not even boil an egg. Why? Because before he came to visit her in her mother's house, she would go to a restaurant and buy food. He never discovered that. She deceived him. So, looking takes time. I often say to people in marriage counseling, open your eyes before you marry. It's when you have married then you can close your eyes. Open wide. Know what you are looking for in the person. And also look around. Find out what kind of role model that person has had from their parents. Because usually people resemble the people they're used to. So look before you leap. Then find out if you like somebody and you're willing to marry them. Then you say, is God behind it? Help me, Lord, to double check. Then you can afford to fall in love. Because once you know what they say, love at first sight. If you love first, finish. You can't think anymore. I'm not saying it's true for everybody, but on average, you cannot unlove somebody that you have fallen in love with. So therefore, you don't see their flaws. If everybody is telling you what a terrible person, you're making a mistake, you tell them they're jealous. They don't want the best for you. So it's really, it's been practical here. So you don't get the root shock.
You said love can be two ways, in the sense that it could be a good one, because obviously you have to love the person you're marrying.
Yes.
So what is the place of love? What is the place of love? Is it not that important for one to fall in love and say, yeah, I love this person? Is love one of the most important ingredients of a relationship?
Yes. But it's only one. It's not all. Commitment is next. Because you can fall out of love with somebody you have married, but that doesn't mean the marriage should end. Because now you have a commitment to a vow you have made. You've entered into a contract. So if you love, you'll enjoy. If love has dwindled, you are still committed. You may not enjoy it, but you don't flip and flop based on I feel love today and I don't feel love tomorrow. So that's why marriage is a contract. It's like God makes you make a vow at the beginning before he opens the parcel. Then you love, and then you continue. But you know very well that marriage, to work and to be sustainable, is not only that you love the person you are marrying, but that you're able to share love of many other things. In other words, you have things that you share in common. If not, you can't just be looking at each other every day and say, I love you, I love you, I love you. There must be certain areas of common interest. So all those are important. But people do change. And if external forces come in, for example, you may very well love each other, then the in-laws get in the middle. And then the man is torn between the love he has for the wife and the love he has for his mother, who has suffered so much when their father abandoned them. You know, all that tie. So then the wife has to say, am I marrying you or am I marrying your family? So that can cause a strain, but does not mean they will break. So you always come back to where God will help you until something will improve. You'll always have a hope that things can change. But it cannot change through just talking, and it cannot change just through arguing all the time or reporting people to everybody. So love has a big, big role, but so does commitment.
Thank you, sir. In terms of, because I'm looking at the way things are now, a lot of our young people have jobs that take them all over the country, all over the world. And I think with the system it is now, you can find yourself in Nigeria in 6 hours, or you in America within a few hours with a supersonic jet. So it's easy to have international relationships now. But I'm just thinking of the challenges young people face now, sir. And when you said that it is important that the couple get to know one another. So how might a couple who, with one, for example, living in the UK, another in the United States,
Yes.
how might they get to know one another? How do you think that will work, sir? That can work, sir?
There are certain things that cannot be done properly remotely. So if two people are in two different countries, they will have to find a way. I advised somebody, for example, who wanted to marry somebody in the UK wanted to marry somebody in Nigeria, right? everything seemed to be fitted. The two families agreed, everything. Spiritual prophecies, visions, revelations.
I can imagine, yeah.
Perfect match. I said, go and see and open your eyes. The girl said, I don't need to. I'm sure God has spoken. My parents are in agreement. And I love him. The way he talks, the way he... Okay, but go. So she went to look for work for a year.
In Nigeria.
Yes. Talking over the phone, WhatsApp, all those things. You can easily say things you don't mean. Nobody can irritate you over the phone. I don't think it took more than 6 weeks for this girl to discover that the boy she knew by correspondence was not the same boy she knew when she got there. Number one, the way he talked to her that made her feel in love was the way he talked to other girls. He made it known to her that that is their way. Everybody's lovey, honey, darling. So she felt, so all those words, I'm not the only one that heard them. Then when important people came, or family friends came to their house, and she was there, he will ask her to stay in the room. He didn't want to present her. She's come all the way from the UK. Wow. He didn't want to introduce her to people yet, because he was still experimenting. So it was then she told me, or she said, or she asked me, then I thought I was in love. The word was perfect. The confirmations were complete. Why did I got it wrong? I said, because there are certain things you can't do by remote. It's when you get there, you see the person, even if it's only for a few months. They cannot pretend all the time. They cannot be on their guard all the time. So it's that knowing and then testing. Prove all things. Even the Bible says it's in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. You get different versions, different angles. Then you know, yes, this is right. So that's my idea. Some do it and they can get away with it. But on average, it's not safe. Find a way to be in close proximity where you see them at their normal self.
Thank you, sir. Is it possible while the couple are getting to know one another,
yes,
not to have disagreement or not to find that there's something about them that it's just not all? They're not a perfect picture. I mean, because we know that we're not perfect anyway. So assuming that they get to know one another and they're feeling that there's some things that it's just not hard enough, or there's something that they're discovering, what should they do? Is it, even though God has spoken, everything seems to be aligning, the families are involved,
yes,
they like them, there's so many things you like about this person, but however, there are still some things that doesn't seem to align.
Yes, because there are some people who have certain character flaws, but they're not fundamental character flaws. But there's some, they're real chronic problems. Like some are stubborn. And when they get into marriage, they're inflexible. They never yield. They always want to win. So if you see that is a big problem and you discover it, as we discover later on when we're doing marriage counseling, some people say, that's what I saw in my wife when we first met. That she's headstrong. And 30 years down the line, she's not only not headstrong, she's feet strong. Some people can change over the years. There's some areas, no. This person does not want to be with me. Only that she doesn't want to be alone. You can say it's marriage of convenience. So when you discover that, it's better to have a broken engagement than a broken marriage. I think my wife will agree with me on that. That's why we have marriage class.
Sure.
For people to discover different things.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes, we did. We did one with you when we were getting married.
If they don't,
I'm still do it.
if they don't do it, the reality is not brought, because you think, oh, I love this person, and then particularly if many people are involved in agreeing with you, you don't want to be the spoil sport and say I'm pulling out. There's a lot of pressure. People expect you. They're asking when is the date, and you can't pull out. So you hope for the best. But you can find out. You pull the plug.
I was talking to a group of young people in this series, and they shared with me about the fact that sometimes you don't necessarily share everything about yourself all the time. There's some things you still keep back because you don't know where the relationship is going to take you. So how do you deal with such a situation, especially in a relationship whereby some people are just not talking? They don't want to be accused of oversharing. So how do you want to deal with such a, because we've gone through marriage preparation classes with some people, and find that especially the men are not so willing to share or to talk. So how would you think that
networking?
Networking.
Yes, there'll be people they share with who will blow the whistle. There's some friends who will casually tell you. Amazing the number of things I pick up from people who don't want to tell me something, but when they don't expect me to be listening, they're telling me things that I needed to know. So this is where God helps us. For example, look at the servant of Abraham, looking for a wife for Isaac. He had certain conditions. So if he does this, and does that, and does this, let her be the person. So even if they don't talk, their body language, you can God can give you wisdom of what to ask, what to do, how they react can tell you how they feel. So this is why God is important. If you don't talk, but your body language can give you away. When you pray, people can know whether your heart is in the prayer or you're trying to be careful. So if somebody is not willing to open up because they don't know if they're going to end up with the person as a future wife or husband, then you know God hasn't spoken to them about you. They're just doing They're just dating in the hope of finding the right person. They have not heard from God.
You said in your book that because we're talking about whereby things might not work now,
Yes.
which can lead to disappointment, and a lot of people are trying to avoid that.
Yes.
And some people are saying that is where dating comes into it. Date several people at the same time because you don't want to be putting your eggs in one basket. You want to distribute it
Yes.
evenly because you don't want to be disappointed. What is your view on that, sir?
Oh. Well, can you see the servant of Abraham looking for 10 Rebeccas? Only look for one. If you're on your own and you're experimenting your trial and error, then yes, dating may help. But I've already said at the beginning, you don't know the person you've married until you marry them for a number of years before they themselves begin to change into a new person based on the new chemistry in their lives. So somebody may be very good until they meet you and then they change. Say, for example, Sister Kate here, you find that she likes peaceful surrounding, right? We're only 2 of us in the house, right? Am I correct?
I don't know what you're going to say.
But it's me that has affected her in her desire to say, everybody, you're welcome. The whole house will be like a boarding school. Left to me, my house will be like a monastery. So she's shifted 70% to my side. I have shifted 30% to her side. Because if too many people come, I run upstairs like I'm scared of people. But she loves to have visitors. And I'm shy. But if she only knew me when I was preaching, if that's the only time she knew me before we got married, she will think easy to get on with people, lovely conversationalist, a bit of an entertainer.
True, because I know when you preach, you.
Yes, but I'm opposite in the house.
Yeah.
When we've done everything like that, maybe I've been on the phone for an hour with somebody and I'm talking and I'm animated and everything. And then afterwards she says, "What did you say?" I said, "I'm too tired to be repeating myself." So she has to be guessing between the conversation. So she's changed, I have changed because we're together. You can't tell that before. You have to trust that God, the woman you give me or the man you give me will be the one you have ordained from before the foundation of the earth. Only God can guide us. We don't have to know everything about the person because they can give us a facade. That's on the physical, facial side. The more dangerous is the spiritual baggage that individuals bring into a marriage. If some people have been inheriting certain things from their parental background and they come together, they may be okay by themselves, he may be okay by himself, she okay by herself, but got a baggage, he got a baggage. When they meet, those baggages marry. And you get some spiritual problems you never had as individuals. It's only when God helps you, just like you watch out to make sure that you have certain blood types, so you don't have problem with the children. So only God can sanitize the individual, so when they meet, spiritual contamination will not affect their happiness. I've heard of people who do very well. The moment they get married, life changes for them. Suddenly. So you can't take God out of it. Because for people in the world, if it doesn't work, they break up. For us, we don't have that option. It's a married life, right?
Indeed.
Married life. So you don't have a baby and then decide, that's not the one I want. You can't go back in the womb. So once you marry, you've got the life. You can't abort it. So it's better to get all the ducks in a row. It's more than, if God is interested in your happiness, then Satan is interested in our misery. So we can't just say dating alone. God must help us in the choice.
Amen. Thank you, sir. I was also quoting you again. You said, if the Lord approves the friendship, you should have a patience to ask Him for confirmation.
Yes.
Ask Him to give you both independently signs. So what types of signs should individual ask for or look for in this period, sir?
Well, judging by our own experience, it's the Bible. That's the best sign. Well, okay, this may be peculiar to us because we are in the ministry when we got married. The way we were counseled or taught about marriage is, if you discover who you like and you love, and God is behind it, God's giving you go ahead, but that is subjective. Then you need to come and pray and say, dear Lord, we're going to separate for a few weeks or months and not contact. Then we want you. In other words, we want to put our future relationship on your altar. If you kill it, then no problem. But if we put it to death and you raise it up, then you can't die a second time. So that period is when most people may not know how to handle it, that you don't contact. Then you say, Lord, speak to us individually and separately to confirm in the Word, if you can. So if people are not Bible reading Christians, it becomes more difficult for God to speak. They might be waiting for a pastor to confirm it, or a friend, or dreams, or I went shopping and I saw his name on one of the T-shirts. It has to be the Word. And that's what happened. God gave us both a word that was almost 100%. Say yes.
Well,
Exactly, yeah.
I can't remember getting a word, but I do remember it was such a shock when he asked me to marry him. It was the last thing in my mind. And I told God I did need a word, I needed signs, I needed confirmation, and we did what he's just said. I said, don't contact me for 3 months. It might have been 6 months, because I really need to hear from God. And I remember he was a year ahead of me. He'd left Bible college, I was still in Bible college. and we were told in the Bible college we'd given all our money away, and we had to live by faith, and we were told to pray to your Father in secret, and your Father who hears you in secret will reward you in the open. So he asked me to marry him in August. I went back to college in September, I think, and beginning of October I said that the fees were £75 a term. I said, Lord, I need, because it was a struggle, honestly it was a struggle to get this £75 and without telling anybody. So I said to the Lord, I need £75 before the end of term. I said that in the first week of October. The next week I got 4 envelopes in the post. One had a 10 shilling note in. They all had strange amounts, but the 4 together came to £75. So I thought, wow, that is amazing confirmation. The other thing is, there was a very, our marriage was very unusual. I didn't know any black and white marriages. In fact, it was the Christians in South Africa who were saying it was a sin. So I had to ask God, do you allow this? Is it a sin? And he gave me the verse, God's made of all nations of one blood, and in Christ there's neither male nor female, bond nor free. And that was a word about mixed marriage for me. And then, just to cap it all, I knew that my parents would never allow it, and they never did. In fact, they threw me out. But he had some friends who lived in Guildford, and they were Dutch, and we went to visit. They were the first people that we told. I didn't tell a soul. I didn't tell a single soul that he'd asked me to marry him. I just kept it, because before I told the news, I knew I'd be getting all kinds of. People were praying every day against this marriage. That's intercessors. So I kind of knew that I'd get a lot of wahala. So I didn't tell a soul. But the first people we told was in the Christmas holiday. We went to visit this Dutch couple, and they were thrilled. And as I got on the train to say goodbye, to go back to college, they put an envelope in my hand. And it was a fat envelope. And on the train I opened it, and it was like God had given me £1 million. It was actually £200, but I'd never had such a big gift before. So I had a lot of questions that I took to God, and God answered them all one by one. I don't know him, I don't love him, I don't know anything about him, but God took me through one by one, and I knew that I knew, and that gave me the courage, because we had 18 months of people trying to stop us. And I've discovered if the marriage is going to be powerful, Satan will do a lot. He will do everything he can to stop it. And in the end, my parents got every man of God to tell me I'm doing the wrong thing. My parents threw me out the house, but I was able to stand up to them and marry him. And, at one point I went to God and said, it's causing so much trouble, let me forget it. Let me just be single. And God said to me, you can, but you'll be missing my best.
Yay.
And here we are nearly 60 years later.
Indeed. So you more or less moved from God said to courting.
Yes.
Yeah.
We didn't know each other.
So what were you doing during this period, courting? What were you doing?
We didn't really court. We were writing letters. Everything he said we were not doing.
We were in Bible school for a year.
I was in Bible college in Wales. He was in Scotland.
But we were a year together in Bible school.
When I was in Bible college, he was a year ahead of me. Of all the students, I admired him so much. I thought he was dishy.
Muscular. Shrunk.
I really admired him, and when he left, I was incredibly sad. But marriage didn't cross my mind at all. Just wasn't there. He was the wrong colour. And I grew up in a very prejudiced house, so God had to walk me through it. You know, that it's okay. But it was the hardest thing I've ever done, but probably the best. Yeah, the best thing, hey? You're the best thing in my life.
Well, take away the probable then.
Take away what?
The probable.
Did I say probable? All right, he was the best thing I've ever done. Of course it was. Of course it was.
I noted from what you said now that you were honest in your analysis. You asked God questions.
Oh, I did.
You were not shrinking away from asking the difficult questions, and you were earnest in seeking God's view on those things, which I believe was very crucial in your relationship. You got answers to your questions. And to me, because I note from what you said now that every relationship in itself can be very peculiar, and it's particular. You said initially now you were communicating through letters. There was a time when you were in the same place for about a year. Am I correct?
Bible college, yes.
Yeah. So on all those things, we were able to learn more about him.
I think the Bible College is the whole basis of our life together. It's the one thing we share, the ethos, the prayer life, the dedication. It was just a very, very special place.
If I may butt in there, foundation is very important. If you don't have some foundational structure that you have in common, and then you can build on it, you can diversify after that. But if you have nothing in common, you'll find that your conversation will be guarded because you don't want to say something that the other person is going to disagree with. But that is where the courtship is, to discover what you have in common, and the others you can have not so important or whatever. I think it's very important. And whenever my wife speaks about our marriage, you know, it's like, do you allow people to marry black people? Like, I don't have my own idea. I didn't say, God, do you allow people to marry white people? What I was asking God, do you allow shy people to marry those who will let you not be hidden anymore? Even now, nearly 60 years later, I would not hold her hand in public. She said, but we are married. I said, yes, we know it.
See what I have to put up with.
So I was saying, let's walk. I said, we're walking together.
That should be enough.
So why would people not assume we're married? So for a shy person, God put me in a relationship where I can not blend into the background. That to me also was a sacrifice. Very big time. But I couldn't marry somebody who wasn't going in the same direction. I didn't marry just because of love. I married because this is what God called me. And God has to give me somebody who's got the same calling, so we're not pulling apart. So if we're broke, she wouldn't say, if you had been a doctor like your mother wanted you to be, we wouldn't be buying second-hand clothes like we used to do for our boys. We wouldn't, yes, we would not be eating baked beans on toast every morning for breakfast. I would not be darning your socks, I would buy new ones. No, she would say, no, this is what God has called us. Things are better now, a lot better, but it didn't start out rosy. So if there was no common purpose, there would be conflict and tension.
Did you have, when you were getting to know each other, did you have to make any compromise? That there are some things here that, like we advise people, are there some things you can live with? Are there some that you can't live with? That is either make or break. Did you ever have to think along those lines.
Are you asking me that?
Yes, I'm asking you.
We married. We didn't really know each other, did we? We got to know each other when we were married, and I think we've both made a lot of compromises. Like he said, I'm an extrovert, he's an introvert. I would fill the house with people.
Yes.
So that's a compromise. I've learned to value him in his shyness and whatever, because I love him, and yeah. So I think we've both made lots of compromises, haven't we? But it's happy compromises.
Well, yes.
I want to make him happy, and I think he wants to make me happy. So
And I don't know whether you call it compromise, but parents, her parents, especially her mother, didn't want mixed blood because she has Scottish blood. Mustn't mix with African blood, so, right. So that was that. Mine, my mother, her mother didn't want her to marry me because I may take her to Africa. It's not just the color, it's that they won't stay here for long. My mother, who was left after my father died, she was my everything, had, you know, the African mentality that certain son is like your husband.
Indeed.
So she had replaced my father with me as her head. So that she will not be like a single mother, but I am the. So we went everywhere together when I was young. Now, there was a year when I went to visit Nigeria, and Murtala Mohammed was assassinated during my visit. So they closed all the borders. You couldn't go out, you couldn't fly out, you couldn't drive out of Nigeria for a whole week while they were looking for the perpetrators. So my mother really enjoyed 100% attention from me for a whole week, just like when I was little. Then they opened the borders and I announced, I'm going back. So she threw a tantrum and called all the names. You know Nigeria? So she put her hand on her head. Help me, oh, my son is going to kill me, oh. So all the neighbors came round. What happened is he's going to abandon me, and I've done everything to please him, lay down my life for him, to make sure he survived up till now. Now he prefers his wife to me. So all the neighbors came, and one man said, suppose you're in the car, you're driving, and your mother and your wife are in the back seat, and you had an accident. Very, very severe accident. Which one of the two will you rescue? I said, my wife. He said, what about your mother that born you? I said, yes, she born me, but she cannot born anybody for me. So I spoke broken English. My wife is the one who has my children. We have a future together. I can't be married to my mother. But she's done everything. I said, yes, so I will do everything for my own children, just like she has done for me. I can't do for my children, I may do it for her. I can't be in the middle. It was then I had to let her know what the Bible says. For this reason, a man shall leave father and mother and cleave. That really helped not to let people come in between us because of the sacrifice they made on our behalf. That cemented. So she will have regretted me marrying her, my mother, because if it was a Yoruba girl, they will find a way to speak to her parents to make sure that She doesn't draw me away from my mother, and so on. So it was a wrench because I loved my mother, but I wasn't married to her. So I made her sad because of marriage.
I made mine sad too.
Yeah, so we,
So we had two sad mothers.
yes. But in the end,
Yeah, they became happy.
very happy, especially when the children came
Yeah.
and they did very well at school. She'd be boasting. Look at my son, my grandson, 13 O levels.
One of the challenges that young people face when they are courting is, just like you've mentioned now, parents view interference, etc., etc. And to some young people, sometimes it's too much than they can bear. And what do you think a lady should do in such a situation? Because in this day and age, that can be very huge in determining whether you want to marry this person. The kind of challenges you face, you wear your upper of her eyes. Upper of her eyes.
Yes.
So a lot of young people these days that say, sometimes it's not so, they are not so happy to think that they have to be dealing with another woman, so to say. And for you, you also have mom. You have your mother who was not happy with the relationship. Assuming we have the same scenario now for a young couple, how would you counsel such a couple?
If you're sure that you're marrying the right person, you just have to stand up. You know, I went to church, I knelt down, and I said, my mother says she's going mad. She's brought every man of God to tell me I'm doing the wrong thing. Suppose all these men of God are right and I've got it wrong. And the Lord, I looked at the window and the Lord said, that on the stained glass window, it said, now unto him who is able to keep that which I've committed against that day. And it was like God saying, it's okay. I'm okay with this marriage. And it was a wonderful thing because I went home and I had a very wonderful mother and a very wonderful father. They were, I mean, I'm spoiled. I'm the firstborn. I'm the only child for the first 5 years of my life. But I went home and I said, I'm really sorry, but I am going to marry this man. And my mother said, not from this house you leave. I couldn't believe my ears. And I had to take my suitcase and get out that day. And you see, I don't disrespect my mother, but my mother was a very dominating character. And she tried to dominate me. And when I stood up and I defied her to follow the Lord, she could never, that was broken. She could never dominate me anymore. And our relationship, of course, the wonderful thing is, we did get married. We come back from honeymoon, they're there asking for forgiveness.
Yes.
We go to Nigeria, they start going to church and give their lives to Christ. We have this wonderful baby, Philip, they fall in love with him. And Simon. And later we sent Philip to stay with them for a whole year. So that domination was cut. And she could never come and interfere in my marriage. And she became to admire me and respect me so much. And, you know, I left my father and mother, you know, eventually, but I also left to cleave. And the relationship with my parents became on a better line. They gave their lives to Christ. They began to respect both of us. So I would say, stand up to your parents. If you're sure that you're sure, don't let your parents dominate you. And the great thing about me standing up to my mum, she could never come in and tell me she could not interfere in our marriage at all. She just, it was so fun. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we had to learn ourselves how to, and learn from God, how to get on together.
So, from your own angle,
yes,
in your relationship with your mother,
yes,
and our challenges in being able to how would I just find the right words? How to shift to the fact that there's somebody else in your life now that is more important.
Yes.
So how did you deal with it? As things begin to unfold along the years, how did you deal, or how would you advise somebody who's going through a similar situation?
You can understand what my mother was going through.
Yeah.
She had never married for love. She didn't know the meaning of the word. You marry for convenience. You marry the manager of a company that you're giving you contracts. My father had 5 wives for different reasons. The photogenic ones for when they go out, the one that is a good cook for when they want to entertain, for one that is a baby factory, is always very fertile and always producing children, and all the other reasons. But no commitment to anybody. Right, so, and my mother had 4 husbands at different times, based on what is convenient. So we had to educate her that you marry for love and you marry whoever God tells you to. So that's really when she began to question my sanity as a Christian. You know the Yoruba that you have added craziness to your Christianity. It's turned my head that what is this you're committed? Suppose she poisons you to take your money. Suppose she does this and runs away and all the rest. They can't understand that you can be together. So we had to educate them with respect, with visiting, with relative, because it's alien to them. They mean for us good things, but it was outside their environment. Mind you, if I never traveled and I lived in Nigeria all the time, I would probably not have the courage or to follow my conviction, because really I was bribed. My mother gave me a whole house, a car with a chauffeur, and I had my own chef, what we call them, cook. Everything, my wife became redundant in the house. Everything was done for us. Everything. So for that reason, when we moved to Nigeria, the church I was working with wanted me to be in Lagos. I said, no, take me out so I can move out and not be under my mother, and then
That was domination.
my wife has to be playing second fiddle all that. It's not quarreling, it's killing you with love. I was smothered. So I had to make that. But later, they both changed. Especially Kate's mother. She changed. She could introduce me to her friends as my son-in-law. And I can understand, because in those days, maybe there was 5 black people in the whole of York.
And York is quite big.
Yes, and not only that, I wasn't a black person to be proud of, because I had left
No qualifications, no
medical
money.
school.
Yeah.
And I was now working in chocolate factory for Roundtrees.
Wow. In this day and age, your prospective son-in-law must have some good jobs.
Yes. So mine was. Some people thought actually that we got to know each other when my wife was a missionary in Africa and I was her interpreter. So she's brought me to England to give me better life.
Some people thought he was my driver.
So that is part. But all these things we're talking about, standing up, not aggressive, but at least if you don't make the break,
Yeah, it's
you will
very
have
important.
more than one person in your marriage. And there will be, your wife will say she wants something, and your mother will say she wants something else, and then you are torn between the two. Then your wife becomes like a stranger, not part and parcel of your life. So that one, it helps to let them know the boundary. The African mentality is, I brought you into the world and I can dictate every angle of your life. We had to educate them. No. We have a big boss now. It's called God in heaven. And he brought these things together.
Finally, sir, is there hope for people who are married and did not have all those things in place before they got married?
Yes.
Is there hope for them?
There is hope, providing they married a Christian. The problem with marrying a non-Christian is that the non-Christian is not submissive to God's will, so God can't speak to them and change their attitude. Virtually, you can be happily married to anybody if you're a child of God, because you'll have enough common Christian virtues that will give you a common denominator to work on. So it's asking God to help you be a wife now, asking God to help you be a good wife, and then trusting God to make him a good husband. Don't try to change the person. People resent being changed. You're not like him. You're not like your friends. You're not like your mate. You're not like your brother. You're not like your sister. No. You need to respect them. They're trying their best. But only God changes people. And there's always hope. It's never too late for people to change, or for you to the first thing before God will change a person is to help you to accept them as they are. It's when you accept them as they are, then God can change them to be as you would like. But if you say, I won't love them unless they change, that won't work. I will love them as they are, even though I can't stand the way he does it. But I'm going to ask God, help me to be a good, submissive wife or a good, loving husband.
I think I can come in here.
Yes, ma'am.
Because in the early years of our marriage, I used to keep banging on to my husband.
Don't speak.
You should love me like Christ loved the church. And I used to leave all these books around about Christ loving his wife. And one day he came with a pile of books and he said, you read the books and I'll read you. And then the Holy Spirit said to me, you want him to love you like Christ loved the church. How about you loving him as if he's Christ? And I genuinely tried to do that.
Amen.
Sowing and reaping.
Yes.
So as you sow love and forgiveness, I remember at one point I said to him, I'm tired of arguing, I give you blanket forgiveness from here to eternity. And it's amazing. So God gave me the ability to love him and respect him like he's Jesus on my head. And it's sowing and reaping. So whatever you sow, you reap. You sow love, you reap love. You sow forgiveness, you reap forgiveness.
And one thing that we're discovering, when you live long like we have, you want to be happy.
Yeah, we need to be happy.
Yeah, because you're only two of you left. And you spend a lot of time, if you're having to manage one another and you have separate lives, it'd be a miserable life. So it's good to be able, whether you're married right or you're married wrong, it's good to be able to love the person as they are. And if God changes them, it's a bonus. But you need to love and like because because it's not funny if you live 24 hours under the same roof, but you're living separate lives. It's no longer funny. So tell your people, life begins at 80. Yes. Everybody's mellowed by then. You're not fighting anything. You're not chasing anything. And nothing is chasing you.
Yeah.
But you want to live together. Not even achieving. The children have grown up. You have grandchildren. So, and you know what more I find? That the grandchildren look at us as what their parents are going to end up looking like when they get to our age. So if they don't like us, they feel sorry for themselves. So we are like a stabilizing force in the family.
Thank you very much, sir. It's been lovely talking to you. This is the first time we're having the two of you together. So
Yes.
it's a wonderful experience. To cap it all, almost 60 years of marriage now.
Yes.
So what has kept you together for the 60 years? What would you say has really kept you together? Through the challenges, what has
In
kept
a
you
word,
together?
I'd say God.
God.
We both, my granddaughter told me I'm obsessed with God. We both love God, and the purpose of our marriage is to serve Him and bring as many people as possible into the kingdom.
Yes. I have two things. Space. I think I've told you this before.
Yeah, you did.
Yes. She has her space, and I have mine. There are certain areas where I'm very good. There are certain areas where she's very good. So I don't interfere with her side. And she tries not to interfere because my side is mostly the financial side. So, but she's happy that I manage the finance to a level where we have no financial stress. She doesn't have to think of anything to do with bills, ever, from day one. So, but if you find that somebody who thinks I'm the head of the house, I must have a say and input into every little details, then you're going to have a problem.
I could say that I'm incredibly happy because he's an alpha male, and I always wanted to marry an alpha male, somebody who's... I didn't want somebody I can manipulate and dominate, but I feel incredibly secure just because he's here. He's got my back. I lack nothing, isn't it? I lack nothing.
Choosing a Marriage Partner, a book that was published about 40 years ago, back in the stores soon. A must read for anybody who is single, whether you're a matured single but you're still looking for a marriage partner. There are nuggets of truth, words of wisdom here that will guide you in making the right choice. Thank you very much again, sir. It's a pleasure having this conversation with you. Thank you, Mom. It was first printed in September 1981. I read it, sir, and that was how I get to know about you. That was how I got to know about you. And when my husband got married and came to New Covenant Church, it was like, oh wow, Paul Jinadu, because I never knew you before. It was your book that introduced you to a wonderful book. It was a foundation for me, and I'm glad that I read it. So that's why I'm introducing this book to you. You need to do this. Thank you.
Thank you.